All right, here we go. This is the reaction to Harder They Fall. This is my kind of one of my feeders that I'm feeder topics that I'm going to do in response to some of the conversations that we've been having in regards to the Harder They Fall. This is Jeff Carroll on the Sci-Fi Express Lane. And I am going to be talking about pretty much how I use historical figures in my stories. Because everybody was all twisted, not everybody, a lot of people got it twisted on how they used the historical figures and the names, Stagecoach Mary, Idris Elba's Rufus Buck, and how they use those characters and how we kind of take liberties. And the law is really very broad on people that don't have living relatives because there's no body to sue. You can defame somebody's character, but you're only going to get in trouble kind of if the person has relatives or if they're alive, especially if they're alive. You can forget about it if they're alive. But how I do it, is twofold. One, there's way I like to do it in my stories, and there's ways I like it done in real life. So, by other people. So, how I say I don't mind it by other people is you can name anybody, anything. But if you're going to name somebody a character, at least make sure that the character that you are going to write with somebody else's name is in a workable alignment to the person you named it. Now, it sounds crazy because how I do it is like I'm naming one of my children. So if I'm naming my child Malcolm or Martin, the character is going to have something to do with who that person is. That protects me just by doing that. But sometimes you run into people who want to name their characters after a certain person who has a big reputation, and they want to change that whole person's behavior, and I think that's wrong. That's how I take it. Now, as far as Harder They Fall, I didn't really have a problem with Stagecoach Mary or Rufus Buck because they kind of kept in the spirit aligned with who the person really was, and that was what was essential. Now, Kathy character, I can't remember Kathy something, the one that was portrayed by Cody or something like that in the movie, the girl that looked like Taraji P. Henson that was running with Stagecoach Mary, was what do you call it? Seemed like she was a little lesbianish, and I don't know if I would make a character gay that wasn't really gay in real life. Nothing wrong with gay characters, no doubt. I have them in my stories. But to make a real person gay, that's borderline. I wouldn't cross that line. You know what I'm saying? So you better make sure. Now, if there's rumors, if there's some confusion, you approach it sort of like a what if. But if they aren't, they got kids, they had a straight life, woo! And the same thing too. If you're doing a character who is straight, I'm gay, and you make them straight for the story, if you're not gonna include this sexuality in the story, then that's fine. But if you're going to include this sexuality and you make them straight, that's kind of wrong too, and I'm not down with that either. Just stay away from it. You don't have to show sexuality at all. Sometimes there's no need. The story doesn't really call for it. So how I do it, so that's how I take it in stories. As long as you're in line, and also, I was so a little salty with Harriet Tubman, but Cynthia Erivo's opinion of black people was what made me question the whole thing. But I'm not really hard pressed on Africans playing African Americans. Dude did a good job as what do you call it? Martin Luther King, so I don't have no problem. Now, somebody like Zoe Saldana, she's not a problem actress in herself, not like Cynthia Erivo, but she's playing, homegirl from France. Oh my God, can't remember her name. Oh, it's gonna come to me. But she was playing a character whose color was a part of who she was. It's like playing a dark-skinned slave that worked in the house, or a light-skinned enslaved African that worked in the field. That's kind of, the line that they cross when they, switch up the coloring of a character. I wasn't so upset with Stagecoach Mary being played by a lighter-skinned African American because, and I don't know. I think Zaza is mixed. I'm not sure if she's biracial, but still in all, that wasn't the point. They kept her in line with who the character was, and also Stagecoach Mary, her color didn't fully, I don't know. I mean, color was so important back in those days that who knows, but it's important nowadays. We just don't have the laws around it. So I'm going to say I don't know, but I'm willing to bet that maybe her coloring didn't have anything to do with who she was and what she went through. I'm going to say, but I do say that I think Zaza could have passed. And that's interesting that you play it by somebody who could, in the time of the story, could have passed for another race. And that was really interesting option. You know what I'm saying? So my methodology is to make sure that the character is like naming a child. And because I do it like that, I don't necessarily run into, problems like that. As far as actors that play the person, I don't want you to feel disrespect towards any of the characters that you play, whether they're real or fake. So, if you're having a disrespect towards kids in the hood, and you're an actor that grew up in the suburbs, then we might have a problem having you play that character, because you're gonna have a negative energy. You know what I'm saying? So, regardless of whether it's an African playing an African American historical figure or not, it's a problem if the actor doesn't have respect for the character, whether they're real or fake. That's a problem. So I don't know, but anyway, I just wanted to throw out on that, throw my hat in the ring. You know what? Let me go back to the Harder They Fall. My problem, isn't the Stagecoach Mary probably exclusively. Like, people are mentioning that and don't mention others. My favorite character, not my favorite character, my favorite historical figure, seems like out of all of them, is Rufus Buck. And they got him really different in the movie. In the movie, his mother's killed by his father, and then he goes and kills his father. That's a major dysfunction. You know what I'm saying? That's a real dysfunctional family. And that's hate, you know. But in the real story, Rufus Buck's father was killed by white people. And he was black and married to an indigenous American. And what happened was he took issue with the fact that they killed his father and went on a murderous killing spree of white people that lived in indigenous territory to sort of get white people or the black people and the indigenous people to lead an uprising and cleanse the land of white people. And I'm like, wow. You know, we talk of Nat Turner being gangster. He didn't get to kill too many people, right? They got to Nat Turner before he got out the box. And we talk about rebellious people. Yo, Rufus Buck is a rebel. He's a rebel. And they made him a gangster. I mean, to me, that's a bigger disservice than the Stagecoach Mary. I'm not saying the Stagecoach Mary is in a disservice, but they miscast everybody. Shoot. Idris Elba is from Africa, West Coast Africa, Sierra Leone, I think. And Rufus Buck is African American and indigenous American. So that's a real different casting. So anyway, those are some of the things that I think, you know, like I said, you got to spread the hate around. And for me, I'm not hating on The Harder They Fall, no doubt, right? Because I think what they did was really, what the movie did was really another reason why people use real world characters or people who are real in real life, and that is to kind of get you to Google and do search and pay homage to the person who is really being portrayed, you know, who was really in the, you know, in real life. You know, we're gonna have a fake Malcolm X, and I want you to Google the real Malcolm X. You know what I'm saying? So I think that is terrific. I don't remember, but it's possible that I read about all these black people in the West. I certainly have a bunch of books on black people in the Wild Wild West, but you know, I never really thought about writing a black Western. My favorite black Western is Buck and the Preacher, and I love them. He was even over Harder They Fall. You know, as much as I love Harder They Fall, Buck and the Preacher I still think is a little bit better. But that's that, you know. I tapped out. I'm expressed out. So yeah, that's it. Deuces.